Decorating Pages is a podcast dedicated to taking you behind the scenes of the designs of your favorite TV shows and films. Each episode, I'll be sharing design stories from some of Hollywood's most famous sets, interviews from set decorators, production designers, directors, and actors about creating the look of TV and film, about their design inspirations, and stories that take sets from page to screen. Hello, and welcome to Decorating Pages. I'm your host, Kim Wanup. I think we're going to be back to work soon. I think I am. I don't know. I think I'm hearing grumblings of some testing going on and getting things into gear, and the studios are coming up with plans, fingers crossed. I can't really look at any more of these Facebook group posts, and, thank you people who are posting, but there seems to be so much discrepancy, and then it just causes more questions that I'm stopped looking. Sorry. Only because I don't know what's true, and whatever someone's experience seems to be on one project probably isn't going to be the same on another, especially with, I think, the studios doing things differently on each of their own lots and such. I know that the prop houses for set dressing, each of them have their own guidelines. Nothing is like across the board really. So, it's just going to take a lot to get used to, I think. But I think we're all going to be back to work pretty soon. Until California shuts down right now. I don't know. Yeah. So fingers crossed. New York, good luck getting back to work. Atlanta, I don't know what's going on over there. But, I think it's going to be soon. That's all I can hope for. So what's Wanup watching this week? Well, I went away for the weekend-ish. We went to the mountains, went to the sequoias, and we were one with nature with masks on. So that was cool. It was gorgeous. I mean, it was magnificent, and I had never been there, and it's gorgeous and breathtaking. So, I'd have to say my TV was tailored by that, my TV consumption, but, once again, I impressed myself with what I watched. I watched a documentary that's on Amazon called The Lost City of Cecil B. DeMille, which is about two guys who, in the early 80s, heard stories of when Cecil B. DeMille, or his original 10 Commandments, which came out in 1923, when they went on location in Guadalupe, California, which is north of Santa Barbara, and they built this gigantic set and the pharaohs and all the Sphinx and everything. When the shoot was over, they just left it there. They buried it in the sand in these dunes and just left it there. So I guess it was a thing that film buffs talked about for the longest time. And, but it's true. So in the early 80s, him and his friends set out to excavate all of these sets. And it took 30 years for them to get a permit, which I think is ridiculous or whatever. I'm not even kidding. Well, permit and funding. It's those two. But it's a really fascinating little back and forth of Cecil B. DeMille's career and the struggle of these people to excavate this set. So it was good. I recommend it. It's a good little watch. I think it's really mean that production left that set there. And there's pieces and plaster all over this beach to this day, I guess. So yeah, The Lost City of Cecil B. DeMille. It's a good little watch. I'm on The Crown Season 2 rewatch, which, God, I love that. I love that one episode in Season 1 of when Churchill gets his portrait painted. It's just really spectacular acting, I think, by John Lithgow, which also he's in Perry Mason, which I'm watching, which is also so good. But he's such a great actor. I mean, I feel like I've been not in love with him, but appreciative of him since Terms of Endearment or World According to Garp. I don't know why I was watching that when I was like 7. I don't know. But yeah, the Crown is, you know my feelings. I rewatched Moneyball. I don't know why. It was on Stars, and I don't know. Just felt like getting out of it. Maybe I needed a sports movie. Maybe I'm jonesing for some sports here. Maybe I needed some Brad. I don't know. Don't hold it against me. But my husband and I did stumble upon this one film, I think it was on Stars, called The Professor and the Madmen. And I didn't know this story. First of all, I didn't even know this movie was made. There's so many movies made now that I don't know if they're going directly to Netflix or whatever. But it's got Mel Gibson and Sean Penn. I never heard of it. I don't know where I am. But it's about how the Oxford English Dictionary came into print. It's a fascinating story of the passion of like people to document our language, which is a huge undertaking. I mean, think about it. Think of all these words. So they came up with a system that people would send in words to help them define them, because it's just a vast amount of work for this little group of people to do. So one of the people who wrote in to really help them was this surgeon, but he was in jail for murder, and that's Sean Penn. I like the story. It does kind of drag on, and Sean Penn does go like really into his role. Like almost like I Am Sam deep. You know what I mean? It's kind of distracting. And I think Mel Gibson, he's got this huge beard or something going on. Now that was distracting too. But it's set in the early 1900s. Sets are, really good. I thought the lighting was really good. I don't know how I feel about Mel now. So I was kind of like in and out of it. But a really good story. I don't know. If you got time, The Professor and the Madmen. And if you're not watching I'll Be Gone in the Dark, the documentary on HBO about the Golden State Killer, get on it. It's so good. I mean, I'm really into serial killers. I'm so sad that Mindhunter is gone. But Golden State Killer was a serial killer in the 70s and 80s in California. And this writer, who is also like a crime solver enthusiast, Michelle McNamara, did years of research in trying to find out the identity. I'm not going to give any spoilers on that. But she was also married to Patton Oswalt. So it's really good. It's really sad. They interview all these women who were raped, and the poor husbands, and people were killed. It's just really sad. Ugh, hate to end on that. But yeah, that's what Want to Watch this week. This episode is very special to me because I speak with production designer Jane Musky. The films that Jane has designed have influenced me more than I really knew. Going back and like rewatching some of these, it just made me just revive the passion and excitement and my love for films. Her films include Raising Arizona, Young Guns, When Harry Met Sally, Ghost, Glengarry Glen Ross, City Hall, Devil's Own, Manhattan. I mean, it goes on and on of how many films just influenced me. Boomerang, I don't know, all of them. We talk about her start as a scenic designer, meeting up with the Cohen brothers to start her film career, giving great advice about set atmosphere. She's just dynamite in that. Her recent season of Murphy Brown Reboot, designing that, working with DPs like Barry Sonnenefeld, Dante Spinotti. I mean, working on such recent films as Hustlers, and I got to talk to her about Ghost and how I never knew that some of it was shot in LA. The classic sets of Glengarry Glen Ross. And then I pull everything I can out of her about Raising Arizona. I'm going to tell you now, I giggle like a schoolgirl way too much. You can hear my nervousness. I like rapid fire at some point, just trying to squeeze every drop out of her about Raising Arizona. That got kind of embarrassing. So I hope you can tell how genuinely in awe I am of her and her work, and feel so lucky that she gave me this time. Just hearing about her experiences, her strength, I'm just in awe. So I hope you enjoy. Decorators are right next to Crafty in the Union, so why would we leave?
Right. So tell me about your podcast.
Well, I started it mainly because I listen to podcasts, and I think that obviously there's this huge audience of people who want to know like behind the scenes work and everything, and I don't think that our world gets enough credit as what really goes on and what it really takes to get it, on the screen. And so I thought, well, this is an easy thing. I got enough friends. I could teach myself some programs and, get this going. And miraculously, somehow, I learned how to, use these programs, which I constantly mess up. And, I've lost one or two interviews and had to recover.
Oh, that's okay. I was going to say, if anything happens, just call me back and we'll do it again.
Oh,
believe me, my heart goes out to you.
I have, a backup. It's actually recording on two different things. That's how paranoid I am about it, because I've had it happen. Yeah. Or the mic didn't work on mine, but it worked on someone on the other person. And so, but I just really thought this is a great little output for all of us to really talk about things. And then I got married, and then I got pregnant, and then I have sort of tried to only do one show a year. That's my plan.
Yeah.
And so, so maybe doing this the other half of the year is kind of, and I really enjoy it. And listen, I'm talking to you, which I would never have the balls to reach out to you. And that's incredible. And the people that I've talked to and how much we all sort of have in common, and it's just nice to talk about it sometimes with people who know your pain. So
yeah.
So and then with this pandemic, it's sort of been well, listen, people, you got no excuse. You can give me a little bit of time.
Now you have time. I actually have a request as you do these. I'm pretty active on the East Coast now with setting up a mentoring group to try to get more people of color into the unions.
Oh, great. Oh, that's
so
fantastic.
At some point, please reach out and do a whole thing on Black set decorators, Black designers.
Yes.
Because I think that what's happening is that we're realizing that because some of them may not be on the radar as much, I think now is a time to highlight them and Hispanic designers and everything. So
yeah,
we've
absolutely.
Quite a nice group in New York that we put together, and I know 800 has been pretty active too, getting it together. So just to put in your thinking cap.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's kind of crazy how the last couple of years, I'm seeing so many more women. I'm working with so many more women, and working, and I think, it draws attention to it. We all sort of open our eyes a little wider, and then we're like, oh yeah, that doesn't happen. Why doesn't that happen? And that's dumb. We should be doing this.
yeah. Well, it's just to throw out there.
Oh yeah. I think one thing that we all have in common is what drove us to get into this. Was it a passion? Were you a film person and wanted to be in this business, or did you stumble upon it?
Well, I actually, going back to our New Jersey high schools, I came out of a pretty formidable high school program where the arts were valued. I'm talking back in the late 60s, 70s. And I was lucky enough to be in a high school that had one of the first advanced placement art programs in the country. And along with that, there were a gang of us that started designing all the plays and all that stuff. Yeah. So that was really sort of where it started in that corny old way, And when I was applying to colleges, I was a very good, I was planning to go into sculpting and some other, side things. And the schools I was applying to, I got in as a sculpture major, BFA fine arts major.
Wow.
But then one school that I went up to visit, Boston University, when I went to the visual arts interview for my, college interview, the head of the visual arts department looked at my portfolio and said, you have all of these drawings and slides of your shows. she basically almost hit me in the head with a hammer saying, you can do this for a living, don't you? And so she was the first person that she basically called the head of the theater program at Boston University, the theater division. And I was only up there for a day, and she got me in to go meet with him right away. And I showed him my portfolio. I, did the whole song and dance. And he looked at me and said, we'd love to have you come here if you want to do it. And when I walked into that theater, which was this beautiful grand old theater the youth theater had forever, I just, as soon as I met this guy and looked at this theater, I thought, this is it. This is it for me.
Wow.
So I started as a scenic designer in the theater first.
Mm.
And when I got out of school, I did the normal New York route of trying to find off Broadway, off Broadway, and then assisting when I could. Wasn't always the best drafts person, so it was hard to find. A lot of the assisting work back then was just drafting, which it still is. But I did have a great scenic art training, so I ended up getting a lot of work on the side as a scenic artist for years and as a renderer. And so that kept me going. And then I was designing a summer at the Williamstown Theater Festival back, I guess it was mid-'80s or so. I should have had all the dates for you. Mm-hmm. And I got a call. I had started doing in New York these after-school specials. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
There was a gang of us. It was me, Howard Cummings, Richard Hoover, Wynn Thomas. I mean, a whole gang of us. That's how we sort of got introed into the idea of filmmaking.
I watched them all.
I was doing these after-school specials. And so in that, all of us started meeting producers and production managers in a whole different industry that all of us were theater people. We had no clue what was going on. And so out of that, I met a great production manager who then became a producer named Mark Silverman, who asked me if I'd meet these guys who had a film they wanted to do. And they were he said, they're very interesting guys, but they're a little quirky. And so I said, sure. I said, but I'm up at Williamstown and I can't leave. I mean, because you work 24 hours a day. I said, I just physically cannot get to New York. And so he called me back. He said, well, they said they'd drive up and meet you. And I said, great, tell them to come up. I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? So Mark told me what the story was about. This is before you could email and do everything. So it's not like I could get a script in time. I think they mailed one that came maybe an hour before I met with Ethan and Joel. So it was Ethan and Joel. Cohen shows up, and we spent, quite a few hours talking, just sitting on the grass talking about Blood Simple. And I had, in the meantime, sort of knew what the story was about. So I had hit the Williams Library during my off hours and had, just tagged a bunch of books because I couldn't color copy either. I mean, we're out in the middle of nowhere. And I just kind of started showing them some ideas. We started talking and we just hit it off. And so that was it. It was like once we were done at Summer Stock, I was headed to Austin, Texas, and that was the beginning of my film career. So there you go.
Isn't it crazy how, because we just all just jump in a car and let's just go somewhere we've never been and let's just, make a movie. Like, it's kind of insane.
Well, back then it really was that. I mean, because you spent more time on the road than based in New York or LA at a soundstage. Mm-hmm. You truly were on the road all the time because you went to the place that the film was about, and maybe you built a few sets in that place, but I lived on the road for years. I mean, I was everywhere.
Yeah, I was looking, it looked like you, like location wise, you were all around for like 10 years almost. Just
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And it was a great time because we were all just sort of young, energetic, young filmmakers, and meeting these different crews in different parts of the country that became your best friends for life. And, it was a really nice time because you had an introduction and they were also interesting films. So the locations were interesting, the quirky people, or being in Santa Fe and learning more about, the American Indian and the Hispanic America and whatever. It's sort of like I was given a gift along the way with all this. So it was a lot of fun all those years. A little tiresome and a little lonely, but that's what it was.
Well, that's the thing too. You're on the road. You just work. There's not. It's not like It's not like it's. Sometimes they've got you, and you just work. And sometimes you want to just
it was
work.
Also they could work you a 6-day week, without overtime. I think it was based on a 6-day week back then. So it was. Pretty sure it was, because a lot of it was still non-union. There was much more non-union filmmaking happening then, and then it became this monster of the entertainment business.
As you start in those projects and start to expand a little bit and get another job, do you try to still use every dollar of the budget? Do you know what I mean? Like, because sometimes you get like a passion project or something and you're like, well, we're only gonna have this amount of money, and do you fight for more, or you're like, okay, I get it? Like, I'm just
it truly depends on the personality of the project, because like a few years ago I did an adaptation of The Seagull that Stephen Karam wrote, which was beautiful. And
beautiful.
Michael Mayer, who's a good friend of mine, he was the director, and we'd worked together before, and Tom Hulse was on board. The cast was stellar. I mean, everything about it was absolutely perfect, but we only had $5 million to make the whole movie. So that's the kind of movie you can't go in and say, wait a minute, this is Russia,
right,
whatever, because I knew
in 1904,
money, so
like it's not even.
so I knew they had no more money, and we had to figure it out. So I never challenged that. I just basically set a parameter saying, this is what I can do, and that's when you really work hard with the location department, because you have to solve 50% of your problems through the choice of locations.
Right.
So it worked out. I think things like that, you end up with a smaller department, and that's tough, because then everyone's just trying to just stay afloat with the hours and things like that. Yeah. But it works out. But then there's other films I call their bluff, because I know the DP they've hired, and I know what that package is going to be, and what that grip is going to be, and whatever. Right. So in fact, I tell young designers a lot, I think they give up too easily, because with the rates and some other stuff, because there's so much money in some of this stuff. And I even tell directors now, because they a lot of directors get walked on a lot of productions now by producers. And if they're a young director, especially, I say, listen, you've been budgeted for 14-hour days. If you only shoot a 12-hour day, tell them you want those 2 hours put in the bank,
Yeah.
So, and it's just things like that I think there's a trickiness to it. And I value having a long career out of New York, that there are line producers I love because I trust them 100%. And that to me is a great ticket, because if I get on a film with one of them, and a lot of us have known each other for years now, there's no sneakiness. There's no, well, I'm sorry, you can only have one on set, or so I value those relationships, and I always hope I end up on films with those people.
Yeah, the dance that we have to do sometimes of just playing this game with budgeting and money and tightening up when you don't really have to, and the stress that it causes people, and it's such a game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the whole thing of the 3 and 4 cameras and constant rolling or constant, turning on the camera, half to 3/4 of that is just on the floor. And that's a tremendous amount of, my big beef when I come on is I say, lose one of your camera crews. If I don't have money to build the set you want me to build, lose one of your camera crews for 3 weeks and pay for the set. And I actually got on one film, I can't remember which one it was, but we actually did look at a calendar with the producer and the producer associated with production, and the line producer and the producer and I went through the shooting schedule and figured out when they could lose a camera package. And it was a great exercise. We ended up with, it's a lot of money to carry those packages.
Yeah, it's a lot. And it's equipment, it's people, it's,
Well, it's overburdening the set with the camera people tend to act like they own the set sometimes now.
Yeah. It's a whole different world.
They're not nice to the onsets. They're not nice to the decorators. I'm not saying everyone, but I'm saying there's an attitude out there that is starting up that really has to stop, because you're operating a camera. That's a whole different thing than decorating a complete movie. Things like that. So somehow I think that the art department has to posture itself, without being bitchy, but keep posturing itself as to what it really is. It's controlling, a quarter of the budget of a movie sometimes. So, I think that that's something that I'm seeing on sets more and more, and it just drives me crazy.
Well, yeah.
When they're pushing the onsets around, going, hurry up, and then you find out there's a fourth camera, not even on a different location they haven't sent anyone with, And that's when I get mad, because I'm like, listen, I'm responsible for how this is going to look in the end. And if you start sending people off to shoot whatever they want, that's not going to help any of us, And then the director's going to look at me when they're trying to cut something, saying, what the hell is that?
Right. I always get into the, moving it for camera. Because I'm much more TV based, and it's the courtesy is gone. There is some respect that has been lost somewhere along the line of the set, and it is so important to have that on-set dresser for protection, because we're not there every minute, and so I've had many conversations of can't you move the camera? Can you just move the camera? Why do we have to move all of this?
The other thing is the poor onset. If I'm not there, and I'm the first one to yell at anyone if they're overstepping their bounds, and I'm fair. I'm not a dilettante. I just sort of say, can't do that.
Yeah. But
if the poor onset is alone, and it's some location 2 hours away, they'll call me up saying they wanted da-da-da-da-da, and I said, no, they can't, so let me talk to the AD,
Right.
So I call the AD or something, but they take the brunt of so much, because they're being used, they're not being used for what they're really meant to be used for half the time, and then if they get if an onset, like a film I finished recently, the onset was great, and she was just, not treated well a lot of the time. People say, well, she's arrogant. I said, well, damn right she's arrogant. She's protecting me,
Yeah.
And they really gave her a hard time, and it wasn't sexist. It was more like I don't know. It was just an attitude, and I didn't appreciate it. So, most of the time, 80% of the time, everything's great. It's just, and TV, unfortunately, I think TV has killed a lot of the protocol.
Yes. Yeah. Because
jump in the pot, hurry up.
Just hurry up. It's hurry up. And hey, listen, on Veep, we shot 70, 80 page scripts for a half hour. Half of what we shot was never even seen. And that stress of getting 40 sets done, you know what I mean? And then and doing 5 or 6 locations a day sometimes, the on-set is just running and running and running.
Yeah.
And they're moving their equipment. They got to move from location to location too. It's such a lot. And I really agree with you I think TV is probably the reason why the respect is sort of getting lost of the art department.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. because we're vital. We're vital. I mean, I know the camera's vital too. I know we're all spokes in the wheel to get this done, and the grip is important. Like, everybody's job, it's all important, but I gotta say, I think we're kind of tops, and that arrogance sometimes that the camera people have, I completely agree with you. And I don't, and sometimes it's not an arrogance or it is like they're their own little group that I never can infiltrate. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It is. And it's funny too. I always say that you can tell, like, who is who on a crew by like what they're wearing. And you can always tell, I feel like you can always tell the camera people, they're just like, they've got the better, like, their style's a little bit better, but it's still like grippy because they gotta be like, they're still relaxed, but they're a little bit up but yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah. And, it's nice to hear that you're into
I think everyone's just got to know that they've just got to keep fighting against it, and then,
No.
And, I always just tell everyone slow down because a lot of the times it's useless energy. And, I think TV people are so used to having to rush as fast as they can, which, that's part of the art of making TV nowadays. But I think that once you come to a feature film where, there's a little more space that's expected for reflection.
Yeah.
When people come to those projects, they have to learn to just take a breath and slow down a little bit.
You've done some huge pilots for TV. I loved Smash.
My guy.
I really liked that show. I was all in.
Yeah.
But do you like designing TV, or it doesn't? I mean,
yeah, I actually do. I did a full season for the Murphy Brown reboot because Diane English is a great friend, and who wouldn't want to work with Candice Bergen, and that team, So that was my first time actually doing a whole season of something, which I don't think that experience is perfect for me, but I would not do. I'm not a television designer that would do season after season or whatever. So I've always chosen to do the pilot because I always find the pilot is when you really get to sort of dig in and figure out how give it a personality,
Yeah.
The pilot, you usually get the better director. Not better, I shouldn't say it that way. You usually get the director that's the one that they're going to set the tone. It's either a producer or someone. Yeah, it's someone they're really paying and banking on to sell the idea. So you end up with some really, really good directors.
I think
I do commercials too, which I like. But
I hate commercials. I hate commercials. I don't know. I mean, I've only done like maybe 6 or 5 or something, and I just feel like I'm so insecure when I do commercials because I'm like, I don't really know what my job is here. Like, am I getting greens? Wait a minute. And then, like, once they start shooting, they don't need me anymore, and and then I kind of feel like a buyer, which is fine. I mean, but I'm super nervous on commercials, but it's great money. Yeah. It's great money. So I like the money. I just don't really like doing them.
Yeah. I've always done commercials, and I like just that whole different rhythm that I have to have it looking and spending the time on a moment that's like, overkill, but you have to do it.
It's such a different eye.
Sometimes there's good travel. You're traveling to some pretty neat places, but and also a lot of the commercial world, you end up with really good DPs. Yeah, which is my favorite thing on earth. Have a good DP.
Yeah, with I was going to ask you with the Seagull when you had. I mean, it was shot by candlelight, right? That was your sources. Did that
quite a bit of it? Yeah,
Did that affect a lot of your color choices in there?
I think the saturation had to be a little deeper in the main room of the house because we knew quite a bit of that was going to be candlelight. Mm-hmm. But I think it was, I guess it did in a way because there was a lot of deep wood and a lot of deep dark wicker, like things that would really reflect but be very luscious, So I think that's probably something that I did, just knowing it's going to be this flickering. And, and Matt, he's such a great DP. He had this gizmo he rigged that was, it looked like a candelabra split in half. And it was just it was just this rig where he would have candles like stacked one after another like a wedding cake. And it was, it had this long handle, and his grip would carry it around and put it near someone's face or whatever.
Oh my God, that's
and
funny.
we, and then we spent a fortune on triple wick handmade candles.
Oh my God, I've had to do that. They're so expensive.
Yeah. But they're worth it. I mean,
and then your onset needs I need like a couple boxes in case we run out. Like,
believe me, that I had the candle budget was probably more than the decoration budget.
Well, that was a beautiful house. I'd like to take a vacation there. It was beautiful.
Yeah. And actually, that place is just north of New York, and we had to be in the zone, and we literally, I think, we're right on the edge of the zone. And it was a house that when I was growing up, my family's Russian. And when I was growing up, I'm told the location scout was out looking for places, and we picked an area because we knew there were these lakes in that area. And I said, there's this place. When I was a kid, we used to go. It was called Arrow Lake, and it's a Russian sort of commune. It's like where all the socialist Russians back in the 40s would have their summer breaks and whatever. And that was that place.
So the Catskills for the Russians?
Yes, it was Catskills for the Russians. And that's where we ended up shooting, and it was wonderful.
Oh my gosh.
And it was still the woman I met who was still sort of managing the place knew my cousins when my cousins went there when they were little. So it was quite a time. And I had my cousins come up and their girlfriends, because it was a Russian cultural camp with the FBI parked outside, and all the kids and the grandparents would watch the kids during the week while the parents went into work at the factories in Brooklyn and Bayonne, New Jersey was where my family was from. And the kids, when they were up there, they not only swimming and fun, and they'd have teenage dances and stuff, but with the rich camp, they called it Limco Park down the road, which is where all the rich Polish and Russian families went. And that's where my cousin met her husband. But they would have cultural dancing and tons of food and whatever. My cousin still gets a tear in her eye when you talk about this place, because it was such a wonderful thing. And so being there was a treat for me, and it was so beautiful. That lake is, we would just swim every day, and take a lunch break and just swim. It's just incredible.
Yeah,
and we all lived there too. That's what was hysterical. Everyone lived. It was
that's one of those movies. That's one of those movies that you could probably make a movie about making the movie of like.
Yeah. Well,
we were all together.
It did have some heavy hitters in it, and it was just such a delight to have all of these like very well-known actors. And
but yeah, Annette Bening by candlelight is still breathtaking. I mean, there's no bad angles there.
But she would just hang out during the day, sort of awesome. Like, hey, Annette, she just, she was so lovely. And I'd done something else with her, so I'm fond of her. She's just the nicest person.
You seem to have, like, films that you do repeat a lot of cast. I was looking through that because she was in The Women, right? And The Seagull. Yeah. But I forget. I kept looking. I'm like, wow, she worked with like Al Pacino. You'd had twice.
Yeah.
And I mean, how do you are you choosing film just based on?
Well, no. Part of it is through the director. So the Al Pacino thing was Jamie Foley.
Mm-hmm.
Which one did we do first? Did we do Glengarry?
Glengarry was 92 and City Hall was 96.
But we have one other one. We did 3 movies, and Jamie didn't do City Hall, but Jamie and I did Glengarry, and we did 2 Bits, this little film in Philadelphia about a movie theater.
I tried to watch that. I didn't have time. I couldn't.
Yeah, I know, it's a cute film. I mean, and Al plays this great old grandfather in it and stuff. It's sweet. It's not a big film. It was just a sweet project, but I think we one was before the other, but so it carried through the Al thing. And then just by coincidence, Harold Becker hired me to do City Hall, and Al was in it. So he was like, hey, that was just a coincidence. But we did do two back to back in there.
Oh, that's
and then
funny.
The third was a few years later. There's been a few of the same actors in a lot of this stuff, and repeat directors. I have a lot of repeat directors.
And you have repeat DPs also. You worked with Barry Sonnenefeld a couple times, and Dante.
That was our whole gang in the beginning. We did, all of us came from all the same places. Barry did after school specials, then we did Raising Arizona Blood Simple, but we also did a ton of movies of the week together. And then the same producer, Mark Silverman, we did a lot of movies of the week. I mean, we all were in this gang in New York running around like crazy. There was so much work. And then I never worked with Barry as a director, though.
And you worked with decorators a lot at the same, like 3 or 4 times, and then you threw them aside, and then like
No, luckily I've ended up with some of the best decorators around.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And what ends up more often than not is I would keep them forever, but someone else grabs them on something and we get out of a cycle. You know the drill.
No, I know.
You worked at the same show for a long, you get into it and everyone is just so fond of each other. And then the next one, it's like, well, I already took this other job and whatever.
Yeah.
So,
do you have a specific thing that you look for in decorators when you go to like hire a new one?
Yeah, I think I could say the overriding personality trait of all the decorators I work with is they're very quick on their feet and they're very resourceful. They don't tend to dwell on something if they can't get something or there's none of the sort of it's very much everyone just sort of figures it out, and I rely on them to figure it out because I've got other things to figure out. So
you got enough to
there'll always be like a good second choice or a good it's just always like constantly keeping the motion going and not sitting back like so. And they're all nice people I've worked with. You want
to find someone you want to spend time with.
I think for a designer, especially a decorator, you spend so much time together. You end up being friends. You end up being social friends. So I think it's got to be a nice match where you feel you are friends.
I like a designer who daytime drinks.
I like designers who daytime drink too. I wish I could but I wouldn't. I would be like the sloppy drunk showing back up to the office. But believe me, after 5, I'm with you.
Oh yeah. Oh, believe me, one of my buyers and I were constantly trying to find a 3 p.m. happy hour in LA. Not that we could get to it, but it's like our dream to be like, oh my god, 3 p.m. we're off. We could go to a happy hour.
I know you'd probably have to hit some weird hotel, like in the valley on some strange
I think it's
road.
It's a full price drink at 3 p.m. and we're not looking for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you definitely gotta like who you work with. That's Do you find when you choose films, is that the overriding thread too of like, well, who's doing it and everything, and then, or is it more script based or?
It depends. Sometimes it's money. I need the money.
It's money. Money.
But most of the time, it's the people involved because the script can always evolve. So I tend to take my cue as to who the director is, and then work back from there because I know that. If the script is great, that's great. If it needs work, I know that if there's a great director, even if it's a young director who really has a lot of stuff going on, like Lorraine Scafari on Hustlers, the minute I met her, I knew she's got it, so I was just going to follow her anywhere, she
That's great.
just really could keep everything going. And she wrote the script too, so it was sort of a nice dance when she would find places that we liked or something would happen. She'd go, I'll just rewrite that.
Oh my God, how nice.
No, I always take my cue from who the director is, for sure.
That's all. And did you, so you enjoyed Hustlers? I mean, I just watched it. I was like, this was really good. I really liked it.
It's neat. Isn't it a fun movie?
It is. It's and it's crazy. Not, I actually thought it was going to be, I thought they were going to be more evil or something. It's lighter and it's a good story of like why people really do things. Not everybody's evil.
Well, yeah.
You know,
it's sort of the innocence of how did we get ourselves into this, you know?
Yeah. Because
there's survivors and they had to figure out something, but they were also women that were so tired of being cheapened.
Yeah.
And you know that it was just a combination of all that. I think once they were in it, it was like, whoops.
Yeah.
You know? So
we got a little greedy.
I think that was what Lorraine did really well, was just the sense of humor of, whoops, we're in it now, you know.
Is Scores still around? Did you go there?
No, Scores
is gone?
Unless they opened up, who knows what's opened up any time in the past year. But no, Scores went under after all that, I think. And I don't know if a lot of it was because of the scandal, like they had to sell. I'm not sure, but it was also in the part of, it was Midtown, and the rent might have become too valuable at that point too. I'm not sure. I mean, I know the club scene did go down.
I know of Scores because I'm a huge Howard Stern fan, so I've heard about Scores for years. I've never like looked it up or seen if there's, you know, what it looked like or anything. So I have no idea. I'm assuming that you did research of strip clubs and everything, but that back wall, that's all. That's you, right? You designed. Is that a set? That Scores was a set, or was it a location?
The LED set, the LED wall on stage, that was in the existing club we shot in, which was great. That's one of the reasons we chose the club. The original Scores was not as glamorous as our club turned out to be, and that was something that we batted around for a while. The original Scores was kind of cheesy. Yeah. And very kind of 90s fake plants and, you know, fake palms kind of thing and dark wood.
I'm just glad you didn't throw any rope light in there. Because when
luckily there was a DP who didn't keep asking for rope light.
Oh, thank God.
Todd was wonderful. That's my other big problem is DPs that like rope light.
Yeah.
but Todd and Lorene and I, we really, I think we made a decision early on that, I'm sorry, you're going to hear me just putting my shoes on. We made a decision early on that we felt it had to have the glamour of being at the height of what they were, and then bringing it down from there. And if it were probably as sort of not attractive as Scores was, it didn't give them that much room to fall, you know?
Right.
So we perked up the whole idea of it as much as we could. And on top of that, even the dancing, everything was just the height of what it could be for these women. You know, like the best dancers, but backstage was still, you know, this not so glamorous place for sure.
But that, to me, the backstage scenes of them all like in their makeup, like that's those are the best kind of like the camaraderie or non-camaraderie that they had, or where they were real and who they really were instead of pretending. But and I'm assuming you had to work with the DP to do the color palettes, because there was a very coldness in some of it, and then warm and I'm assuming that was a discussion.
Todd and I definitely had to plan all those moments, because the interviews, their ways of life, and we, not only with his lighting and what we wanted out of the colors, but Lorene wanted a progression of sorts. And what was that? You know, our job was to help her figure out the progression of style, you know, and we all just came up with this idea that in their real life, things started losing color. And the club started getting less colorful.
Yeah.
So that sort of played out well for us, because then the interviews became very stark and sort of sad.
Well, yeah, her, I can't think of her name, but when is it the Times? The New York Times reporter is interviewing that chick in her
Julia Stiles.
Yeah, when she's interviewing her.
Another repeat actor I've worked with 3 times, yes.
When she's talking to her and she's, crying and she's upset, you can feel the cold. I paid attention a lot to the coldness around her, and how even like her set or her apartment was dressed, and how like she tried to keep everything sort of perfect and clean, and yeah, it was really well done in conveying that.
One. It was nice job.
Yeah, really well done.
And there we had absolute respect for the onsets.
Oh, there you go.
We had a wonderful crew, and everyone. It was one of those. By the end of it, you're like, wow, this is what it's supposed to be like.
Oh yeah, I like those. You're like, oh, that was so good.
It was also a group of producers I'd already done Mona Lisa and Maid of Manhattan with, so I knew walking in it was going to be a very protected situation for all of us. So it kind of set everyone on a good way,
and
because they're wonderful producers.
And I don't know if it's the same producers, but you're doing another J-Lo film, or you've completed it.
Yeah, we just finished just before the breakdown of the world. Right after Hustlers, I think there was about a month or so, and then Marry Me started up, which is a romantic comedy, completely different. And we shot that all in New York, but that's really about a school teacher, Owen Wilson, and a rock star, and the sort of the blossoming of their romantic relationship. And it's very sweet. It's a really nice film.
Well, I think the world needs a rom-com right now. So
it's a great romantic comedy, and it's got a lot of edginess to it, and there's a lot of great musical numbers. So I got to do a lot of really nice big rock and roll sets, which is always fun.
Are you friends with J-Lo now? I mean, it's like 3 movies. 3 movies you did with her.
4. I've done 3. 3 with Jennifer. 3 with Jennifer. No, I mean, we know who each other are, but she, and rightly so, she's extremely professional. And she comes on set. She just really is such a great person to have on the set. She has a good vibe. She does her work. She knows her lines, and so everyone just kind of steps back and lets her do her thing, because she doesn't really, it's not that she doesn't want to be friends with everyone. She just wants to, it's business. She wants to get it done.
Yeah.
But she's very nice, and she's very respectful. She hangs out on the set and just, does her thing. And, she definitely, we know who each other are, but it's not a friendship or anything. It's just a respectful relationship.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's such a smaller world in New York City, actually, of like people working together, or the movies that are made there. And like, I often wonder, even more lately, doing this and talking to more designers and decorators from New York, if I should have gone to New York, because it was less, like there was probably less people. And then with LA, there's probably more people. I probably would have done better there or something.
Yeah, but LA's having its own renaissance with stage work and stuff, I think.
Yeah, and I think movies will come back now, I think. I don't know. Movies haven't been big here in either. I mean, Marvel, that's all. I mean, it's just big films and then maybe a little one here or there. But yeah, most of your films, since you said you started out being on the road a lot, but you're in New York City, and films like Harry Met Sally and City Hall and Hitch and Hustlers, like they're real like New York City type films. Does having New York as a character sometimes limit you as a designer?
No, never.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I think that the beauty of the city is that whenever you're starting a new project, it's like, wow, this is a part of New York I've never seen,
Oh, that's fantastic.
I always feel like there's just more to be had,
Yeah.
I think if anything, the thing to watch out for is, in LA we go through the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, that house, we've shot there 10 times. They'll let us in.
Yeah.
So you have to keep trying to fight against that sometimes. But sometimes those places are good, But I always feel like there's movement here. There's always enough going on,
I didn't realize, because I rewatched Ghost this week, and
Boy, you do your homework.
Well, listen, I'm not gonna lie to you. I've basically seen everything. I just rewatched a lot of your movies, but well, I hadn't seen Ghost in so long, and I feel like when Ghost came out, I watched it so many times. Like that was like the movie like you watched over and over, but not until now did I realize you shot a lot of it in LA, right?
Yes. I've been through so many different, I don't know what the word would be, but along the way, like, for a long time it was like, oh, you got to shoot non-union. Then the drill was, no, you have to shoot most of it in LA because it's cheaper here. It's a studio movie. They want to pay their overhead.
Right.
And then you'd be like, but it's all about New York.
Yeah.
We're just going to do 4 days in New York. Then there was we're going to Toronto. So it's like all these phases of one's career, and you're like, oh my God, can't you just shoot the stupid thing in New York?
I know. I know.
So what ended up happening was all those years of having to invent New York and these cities that were very un-New York, Ghost was the beginning of still having to be splitted because it was just a big Paramount picture, and they were like, nah, you got to shoot on the lot and build a lot of sets. So, and they had the money, so there was no problem in the end because whatever I needed, I got. But it ended up, I think what we were able to do was we did spend quite a bit of time in New York because then you shot longer. You shot 14, 15 weeks.
Right.
I mean, you just kept shooting. So we were in New York for quite a few weeks, and we built some sets here. But the main sets, once we got going, part of it too was, Demi had just had a baby, and she was such a big star then, and she didn't want to drag her kid all over the place,
Right.
So, and Jerry Zucker, that whole gang, they were LA based, so they were like, I think we want to be home.
Well,
so it worked out.
There was only when I saw there's like that Spring Street Bank or whatever that I've shot at 1,000,000 times, and like I was like, oh wait a minute, that's LA. And then I think that's LA. Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh, my whole life, like, what a great job.
Well, it was the same when Harry Met Sally. We had to start, they wanted to shoot almost all of When Harry Met Sally in LA.
Oh my God.
They sent me to LA to scout. I think I was scouting in LA for about, 5-6 weeks, showing Rob anything I could find that looked like New York. And I just looked at him one day and said, Rob, we have to shoot this movie in New York.
Yeah.
It's going to look like a piece of junk,
Yeah.
So Rob went to the studio and he just said, guys, this is a big New York romantic comedy. We got to go to New York. So we, at that point, had already started building the brownstone apartment and with the wagon wheel coffee table. And so we all decided, because I think there was maybe 2 weeks of shooting in that set. So, and Barry shot that, yeah. So we all decided we were going to finish that set, spend the time starting in LA, and give me a little lead time then to go and find the rest of the film.
In location.
So I was a little bit ahead of them. Yeah. And then we just moved the whole picture to New York.
And there's so many New York locations in there that, I mean, the bookstore or the museum, like, there's nothing that's so New York. Like, I can't imagine that they wouldn't want that character to be real there. That's crazy.
Well, back then, I think, stars were so big and made so much money that I think the thought a lot of times was, we already have the big stars. They're going to watch it anyway.
Yeah.
And, that made sense. But part of it was also, but don't you guys want it to be a good-looking movie?
Yeah.
So,
well, the deli scene. I mean, what were you going to do? The deli scene at Cantor's? I mean, what the hell?
Well, then what we ended up doing was we tailored that
to
scene
New York.
We tailored as we went to locations we found.
Oh, yeah.
So that scene evolved out of... but part of it was all of it. We had so much fun scouting because we all like to eat. So we all would be eating everywhere and thinking, maybe we should shoot a scene here, if we like the food somewhere.
Yeah.
So it ended up being a lot of fun because then we just kind of basically worked it out so that, we like the sand. Let's shoot again.
Crew meals. I rewatched When Harry Met Sally this week too, but I had forgotten how funny it was, and I also, I mean, I knew that it spanned time, and now when I look back at that time, I'm like, wow, you got to do a little bit of the 70s, and then this like 80s New York, which was contemporary at the time, but now you look at it and you're like, wow. That's so 80s. It's so perfect. Yeah,
I know. Her hair. Gloria Gresham who did the costumes. I mean, I just had to laugh. Every time Meg walked on the set, we were like, oh my God.
That hair. I know. And even I was looking design-wise, like, there was always something like bright and sunny about her, kind of. Like the yellow car. Or I think you had like her apartment in yellow, and it's such like a character infused into the set. I
think we all decided early on that she just had to be borderline goody two shoes.
Yeah.
She just had to be so sweet and innocent. And that college girl who picks up this clown, who spits cherries at, or grape seeds, whatever it was.
But even like when they're the side by side in the beds, that's like my favorite because you're like, oh, that's her bedding. Like it's so hard sometimes to pick bedding. I feel because you're like, well, I realistically always want to go to like where would they shop? Let's go that route first and see what options are, and then it's like, well, that's not good, and then let's go for something interesting But his side being like all monotone and then hers being like girly and everything. It's so great. It's such a perfect
I also
scene.
think it was like when we were, because the bed was so important for that.
Yeah.
I said, I think she can't make a match. That's her problem too. So she goes and gets like April Cornell, like curtains and
yeah.
Does the blue go with the yellow? Do they cover? Does it, So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, the pattern and the flowers that she's got going on, it's awesome. It's so great. Yeah. I'd forgotten how good that movie was, and I had forgotten that I owned it, which was nice. I saved some money streaming it.
VHS copy.
At least I had a DVD. It was like, another one of your movies that I own is Glengarry Glen Ross. So.
Oh yeah.
Which was like, did you see the play before you designed it?
Yeah, but it's so funny. You also, I saw the play, I read the play, and then I read the script. And the script started to move a little bit away. But then Jamie, we had a few just logistical problems. In the original story, they have to keep trudging through snow. So the salesman, their big obstacle is relentless snow. And we were shooting it over the summer. So Jamie, he's such a funny guy, Jamie Foley. So Jamie I think there were like 3 things I said. Ask David Mamet if we could change this or change that or whatever. And Jamie said, "We can't ask him to change things. It's David Mamet." I said, just run it by him. I mean, we can't do snow. What do you want to do? Why don't we do rain? So Jamie goes up to Cambridge, Massachusetts to meet with David, and he's all panicked that David's going to bite his head off when he says, "Listen, can I have rain instead of snow? Can I whatever?" And he turned out to be the loveliest guy and went, "Oh, okay, that's a good idea. Yeah, go for it." So it was
I feel like I would be intimidated with that too. I feel like I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if I could ever. I don't know. David Mamet is. I feel intimidating. I don't know.
Well, so I had done a long time ago. I did a set at a little off-Broadway theater called Ensemble Studio Theater, which is quite a famous place back then. All original plays, really great place. And a lot of people sort of came out of that family. This guy Kurt Dempster ran it, and I had to do a David Mamet piece for what was then called the Marathon, and Greg Moser was the epitome aficionado director for David Mamet, and they're best friends, was the director of it. So in the play, it was about guys sitting around a wood stove in Vermont, and I literally had to bring chairs to audition because David Mamet had written squeaks in between these guys sitting on their chairs.
Oh, wow.
So the squeaks were written into the dialogue. So I had the poor prop person, I said, grab every chair out of the basement, grab every chair down at New York Shakespeare or whatever. We lined up, had to be 30 chairs, and Greg sat in each one of them to hear the squeaks. And he picked, it was like a chorus, okay, the high squeak, the low squeak.
The auditioning chairs. You never know. You never know what you're going to audition sometimes
never
on
know
set.
what's going to hit you.
God, did you find one, though, that worked, obviously?
Oh, yeah, I think there had to be 10 of them or so,
oh, wow.
we found enough.
Did you have fun on Glengarry Glen Ross? I mean, it seems.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that cast. I mean.
Well, yeah.
Aside from my butt, I follow around Al Pacino.
Yeah.
I mean, Jack Lemmon. I mean, God.
Jack Lemmon is phenomenal in that. He's phenomenal.
Yeah.
He's so good in it.
Everyone, Ed Harris, the whole cast, and they were all favored nation, so everyone just was so cordial to each other. And it was a really interesting design project for me because every one of those actors was so top of the line.
Yeah.
You knew that they were going to sit at their desk and go through everything.
Yeah.
They were like a great stage actor. They were going to look at pens. They were going to look at what kind of paper they write on. So it was intense because we really had to be sure. I mean, it was one of the only times on a film where I asked Jamie, I said, I think I have to sit with each one of these actors and really talk about their stuff. And he agreed, and I really got a chance, once I dressed it to a certain point, one would show up and we'd talk it through, and then the next and whatever. And it was in depth. I mean, Al wanted locks on his drawers certain ways, and it was a lot of fun. It was much more like doing theater.
No, that's fantastic.
On that set, yeah.
Because I do feel sometimes there really should be more conversation between the actors and the design, because they're creating this. I know that we come on a lot earlier than they do, but they are the character as much as we're creating the character environment. Like, they have to intertwine. So I do feel that there should be more interaction, but the times that I have interacted, I've gotten burned. So
yeah, I think that's part of the problem. Is
so then you don't want to do it anymore.
Directors want to save us from that, where the actors get a little. I've had actors be so out of control, and so not on the money, about things that they thought their character would have, that I regretted asking at certain points, because then I realized, like, in Glengary, those guys were such pros, and they all shared an office. So I don't think they felt that they were asking for anything that was different than someone else would be asking for.
Right.
Where sometimes if you get the actors involved, they almost are forgetting about all the other actors and sort of like, well, I want my bedding to be this, and I want, whatever. And a lot of times it's more personal preference of what they feel good in, or a style they like.
Yeah.
And it might not have anything to do with the rest, really, what the story is about.
There's a couple things in that set, like there's the empty desk, or there's the like inspirational quotes for salesmen that are up on the walls.
Yes.
Is that scripted, or is that just part of the design that you inputted?
I think. Well, the empty desk is, you have to know people have been fired, or done away with, and then I think in the original script, maybe there were maybe there was reference in one part in the beginning about inspirational posters. And, that was that.
I like
and so we had to come up with clever stuff, but it also had to be cheesy. It had, these guys sold steak knives, that had to be cheesy stuff. So I can't remember who did the graphics on that, but that was when the graphics were still a lot hand done,
Well, it looks like it's like printed out of like a DOS printer. It's like perfect.
Yeah.
It's like, they had it in the office. They printed it. It was like, everybody, print this out to inspiration on a Friday meeting or something. And then they just kept it up. It's just perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let me see. Can I ask you about Raising Arizona, or are you like...
Yeah.
I don't want to escape Raising Arizona because I've seen it a million times, and I had twins, so
oh, you did.
Seeing that bed now is like, if only they would sleep. I can't even. I had them sleep together one night, and then they were like kicking each other. So the scene to me is so funny now to see like 5 babies sleeping in one bed.
Harry, Larry, Barry.
Yeah. So you were in Arizona for that. Was the house, was that house real, or was it a set?
It was half and half. So the house this was before Scottsdale, Phoenix really became what it is now. So it was still a little lost in the 50s, 60s. And that house was actually a house on a golf course that was shut down. I think they thought they were going to turn it into a clubhouse or something. I don't remember the history, but it almost looked like a restaurant on the outside. And so when you enter the house, the first floor living room was real. And that whole... looking up, once you went upstairs, it was all set.
So because the ceilings were so high, that's why I was like, I think this is a location or just an exaggerated set. It seemed like the ceilings were so high, and then you have the beautiful wallpaper on there.
The feathers or whatever, I can't remember what it was. That was all there, believe me. I went to an interior design place and looked at their wallpaper books. Oh my God, this is perfect.
Oh my gosh.
I think we oversized stuff a bit because we were all still pretty green, and there's so many camera moves. I know the hallway we made a little bit extra wide because of the way we had to move the camera and the amount of running that Nick had to do to grab the baby. The height in the nursery, I think it was only 10 feet, but I could be wrong. Maybe it was 12. But a lot of it was for camera moves, and even coming up to the window and then down, or coming from the window, and she screams. Yeah, I think we weren't prepared to wait for a lot of ceiling pieces in and out too, because the camera was moving constantly.
The camera, you see the ceiling a lot in that nursery, which from baby point of view and such. But and then you have that great cloud wallpaper with the reverse on the shades, which I think is so perfectly 80s.
Arizona.
Yeah, that to me is, I was like, that is the perfect 80s nursery thing that you would have. It's just amazing. And then was the trailer, I mean, obviously
that was a set.
Yeah. And,
so the inside was a set, and then we found this great lonely place to set up the trailer park, which I sort of I said, it's not a real trailer park. It's like the has-beens have been parked off to the side,
It's really just them. Yeah. And then you shot in a jail in Arizona? I've shot in jail.
We shot at the state. Yeah, we shot at the state penitentiary, which is one of the,
oh wow, sort
of more angry ones. I don't know how we got it. I think the governor let us in, but it was pretty tough. But we got through it, and I think the inmates were just sort of tickled about the idea, because a lot of them were still in their cells when we were shooting, which can't happen anymore.
Oh wow.
You'd have to clear it out.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the only time I've shot in a real jail, the wing was empty and we got to shoot in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even that was like, whoa, this is crazy.
Yeah, we shoot in real jails all the time in New York, but there's wings that are put aside for us for shooting, but they're definitely occupied, and you see prisoners walking around and whatever.
But I mean, Raising Arizona's gotta be a million people's favorite movie. So it's just it never gets old, and I feel like every time I watch it, I see something different. I mean, running through the stores, or it
was just Holly was. I mean, just her take on that wife, mother, was just
so weird.
It's
so weird.
It was like every day on this set, you would look at Holly going, where did that come from?
That voice, I mean, her voice is so recognizable.
Move to the right, turn, move to the left.
It's so great. It's such a great movie. Yeah. Do you rewatch any of your movies?
Sometimes if my family's watching it, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
If it happens to be on or something. I tend to watch the ones that I've just finished a few times just to be sure I did everything okay. But the older ones, not too much.
Oh my God, I feel like I watch your movies all the time. Are you watching anything now that's like inspiring? Or have seen any films, or like old films, or like anything?
Well, I saw the new Emma, which I loved.
Oh, is it good?
The sets are beautiful, and it's definitely got my vote. It's just beautiful. So I like that a lot. And then the Claire Blanchett, the series on Gloria Steinem and stuff.
Phenomenal.
I watched. I thought it was a little I'm old enough to live through all that and have seen Gloria Steinem at rallies or whatever, and I thought they played it a little too stereotyped. So it bothered me as a woman of the 60s, 70s who marched and took over buildings and stuff, that I thought they lost a little bit of the everyone wasn't like Gloria Steinem was not that kind of hi, my name's Gloria.
Right.
There are parts of it that just personally bothered me, but I thought that it was well done for sure.
See, I'm so glad to hear that, because it made me feel bad kind of as a woman that I don't know enough of that history. So I sort of liked it, and then have gotten more into like reading her book, or like, looking into who these women really were. So for me, it sort of opened it up, but that's good to hear that it's not exactly portrayed right, because there was something about her using her feminism to like the way that you shouldn't. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah. I
just remember my reflection on her as a young woman was seeing this absolutely beautiful woman, but she made nothing of it. It was almost sort of, she just ignored it. But maybe they did research that showed other stuff that I never knew about her personal life, So.
At the end of the interview, I continued to talk to Jane a little bit longer and asked her for some advice on how to be a working mom and juggle this industry. And she gave some great pointers and some great advice, and basically consistency. Having consistent and solid care for your kids and yourself. I mean, the dependability of someone that you can trust. And so she was very kind to talk to me about that. And I'm taking your advice, Jane. So thank you for that. I really like to just thank her for this time. It was precious for me, and I hope I didn't dork out too much. I just was so excited. I was so excited to talk to her. I hope you got an earful. I'm Kim Wannop for Decorating Pages. I want to thank everybody for listening and continuing to email me questions here and there. That's really appreciated. I hope I'm getting back to you as fast as I can, and I hope you're getting answers through all of these wonderful interviews I've been able to put out throughout this pandemic. I hope I've been able to keep you entertained. If you have a chance, just click those little 5 stars or write a little review. Just tell me how much you love me. Thanks. How is it August already and you don't have a Stogie Floaty? Come on, float in style. Stogie Floaty Luxury Pool Float. Available now on Amazon, Etsy, and stogiefloaty.com.
Welcome to Pro Tips for the Pros, brought to you by Floor & Decor Bailey's Crossroads. In this series, we'll explore essential advice for professional contractors to deliver outstanding renovation results. Let's dive in. Prioritize quality craftsmanship and materials to deliver results that exceed the customer's expectations. Attention to detail and superior workmanship will leave a lasting impression and ensure customer satisfaction. Thank you for joining us for this pro tip on planning thorough renovations. Stay tuned for more expert advice brought to you by Floor & Decor Bailey's Crossroads.
A lot of people tolerate ordinary. Ordinary bathrooms, kitchens, entryways. Well, not on your watch. If you're a pro, you've got a new partner in town. Floor & Decor. From tile to wood to stone, Floor & Decor has more styles and job lot quantities of Schluter, Mapei, Laticrete, and other brands pros trust. Come see a whole new way to wow with Floor & Decor. Coming soon to Bailey's Crossroads.